Just one more hour until reinforcements, aka me, arrive to save the day. But until then, keep your eyes on the highway and keep on trucking with Jimmy Mack on Road Gang Radio, y'all.
Oh, she said it with all the might in all the world and all the love in her heart. She will be here soon, but this is Road Gang Radio Live with Jimmy Mack, live from the Fastport Studios.
Yeah, the Fastport Studios are where we're at the historic Edgar Degas House. We are thrilled to welcome you guys here as we get ourselves ready to bring in Robert Braswell for Tech Talk with TMC. Guys, tatnonprofit.org. You really got to head on over there. So much of what you guys do out there is simply become a network of eyes and ears. I know sometimes the urge to kind of help, the urge to kind of step in is there. I don't blame you. But, man, if you get the information from tatnonprofit.org, if you get that info, it is going to give you what you need to do to make that happen. Okay, I'm sorry about that, Robert. I wanted to make sure that news and information got out there. That's like one of the most important things we do here. Up there as well is our long-running segment. Robert Braswell joins us this morning, as he always does, for Tech Talk with TMC. Good morning to the Braz.
The Braz.
Well, good morning, Jimmy Mack. Great to be back with you for Tech Talk with TMC. Thanks for dancing there for a second while I was getting my gear hooked up. This week, we're very pleased to welcome to the show Randy Patterson, who is Senior Field Engineer with Bridgestone Americas. Randy is a longtime TMC member, and he's going to be sharing with us his experience on tires, tire maintenance, but also we're going to be previewing our National Technician Skills Competition, TMCSuperTech. That's coming up next week in Raleigh, North Carolina, September 14th through the 18th. But before we bring Randy on, Randy's the competition chairman this year, by the way, and he has been doing that for the past several years. But before we bring Randy on, as you know, each week we like to make a special offer available to our listeners. This week it's our TMC Radial Tire and Disc Wheel Conditions Digest for the discounted price of just $20 plus shipping and handling. If you want to order, you can call us now at 703-838-1763, or just shoot us an email at tmc@trucking.org. Mention Radio Nemo and get it for that special price. Also, if you're an owner-operator or a small fleet with 100 or fewer power units, we'd love to have you as a member of TMC. You can join for the discounted annual dues of just $150. And do that today. You'll get our 2-volume Recommended Practices Manual, along with many other great benefits too. So please call that same phone number if you're interested in signing up. And at the top of the program, we always remind our listeners that any recommended practices we discuss reflect the consensus of our members. We offer them as recommendations only, and everyone must first determine for themselves if they are safe and appropriate for their operation. Please remember that TMC doesn't endorse any product, person, or service, and the opinions expressed in the show are those of the individual and not necessarily the opinion of his or her company, nor TMC, unless stated otherwise. And with all that out of the way, please welcome to the show this morning, Randy Patterson. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning, Robert. Thank you for having me. It's a great day here, and very enjoyable time we're going to be having next week. And thank you for talking about. We're going to talk about TMC a little bit and SuperTech. It's going to be a great week next week, and we're going to be able to have technicians there in Raleigh, North Carolina, starting on Sunday, September 14th, and Monday. And technicians will be competing with each other, and we'll see who's the best of the best from all over the country. Thank you.
So a little bit of background on the National Technician Skills Competition. It was started in 2005. It's our 20th anniversary, and it was designed to, showcase the professionalism of the industry's commercial vehicle technicians. Back in Valley Forge, when we first started it, we had like 50 contestants. We've more than doubled that now. We've added a student competition track, and Randy has been with the competition for many, many, many years, starting off as a skill station chair for the tire and wheel station. And although he hasn't been doing that for the last several years because he's been our competition chairman for the entire event, still, I think that tire and wheel is near and dear to your heart, not only for your current role at Bridgestone, but also you were a fleet at one time, right?
Yes, sir. I started off as what we call at TMC a yellow badge and a fleet technician, and then worked my way up to corporate tire maintenance manager. But it's very nice to see with this competition how technicians come together and see them progress through their history, because not only I've been attending and participating with TMC for the many years, but this competition, you can see the technicians grow over the years. There's some competitors that we have coming that have been competing for almost all the time. Some we've seen compete for many, many years, and then some that are no longer competing but have moved up into management or other fields in the industry, in the transportation industry. So it's very nice to be able to see progression of not only myself and not only TMC, but as some of the competitors, how they take this and make it as a stepping stone in their career. And that's just a very fulfilling type thing we see there at TMC.
The competitors are going to be going through one of 27 different stations as they go through the 2-day competition. Tire and Wheel just being one of them. There are a number of new stations we're either bringing back or creating this year. For example, HVAC is making a comeback this year. We have one on telematics and electrical diagnostics. It's a little bit new. Cybersecurity is fairly new and always, innovative station. But Tire and Wheel is the one that you're closest to over the years. And, it's really probably one of the most, if not the most important, because tires are the number one maintenance issue for maintenance operations. It's the number one cost short of fuel, which is really more of an operating expense. And, because of that, a lot of attention is paid to Tire and Wheel. And one of the things we try to do in the competition is try to reinforce some of the recommended practices that we know will provide, really good service for the majority of operations out there in the industry. Randy, what are some of the things that we incorporate into the competition that we try to, not only measure, but also teach as the competitors go through the different skill stations?
Yeah, Robert. One of the multiple things that happen in the technician is the technicians come and they're challenged. They're challenged of their basic knowledge of the different components, and we talked about a few, Tire and Wheel, one of them. But we also talked about we challenged them on, for example, steering and brakes, and you mentioned cybersecurity and electronic engine diagnostics, and all this stuff is very important because of the role they play on that piece of transportation or on that truck or trailer going down the road. We've added trailers over the last few years, and we'll again have trailer competition areas that the technicians will be expected. But let's get back to tires and wheels. Tires and wheels are very expensive and play a critical role, like you mentioned. But one thing that fleets many times look over is a technician or maybe a shop manager comes in and sees as well. It's very important that the truck has the safety devices on it or the components on it to make it run down the road smoothly and everything like that. But you can't forget the tires and wheels, because all that safety that we put on trucks and all the cybersecurity and the computers that are on the trucks, they don't go anywhere if you don't have good tires and wheels. And the maintenance of tires and wheels are very important, because if you don't have good tires and wheels, the proper inflation pressures, the right tire in the right place, that vehicle can't go anywhere. They have to be safe. They have to be inflated properly, the right wheel for the right place. So that's the kind of tire and the wheel part of it. But some of the other places or items we're going to talk about in the competition and challenge the technicians on are like ADAS, all that automatic stuff that has lights and bells and whistles coming up on tractors and trailers as they go down the road. It's the same thing in the cars. Everyone has them in their cars, but going down the road to where we keep the drivers aware of their surroundings and what's going on the vehicles. And now we have TPMS systems in tires that keep the drivers aware of the inflation pressures while traveling down the road. Not to mitigate the fact that pre-trips and post-trips are very important to look the vehicles over, but all this stuff is happening while the drivers are going down the road. So it's a very interesting thing, and it melds the, some people say, oh, tires are black and round. Well, they are, but they play a very important piece of that vehicle traveling down the road. So this gives the opportunity for the technicians to be challenged, and they learn what they show their skills of what they know, but they also learn what they don't know. And they also set themselves up as networks of knowing people. Some of these people that come to the competition year after year, they get to know their competitors, and sometimes sometimes they've actually picked up phones and talked to competitors when new technology comes out. Everybody has to learn about it. It's on all the trucks. So they talk to each other, and so they develop that network and start going from there, and they continue to grow that network. And they also have the opportunity as judges that come along, and people like myself as chairman of the competition or chairman of the stations. We're the people that actually manufacture or help develop these products. So the competitors can actually talk to us. One part of the SuperTech competition, and is fortunate that we're able to do it at TMC, is we offer training to the technicians on the third day. We have competitions on day 1 and day 2, but on the third day, we offer training for the competitors. And this year, a couple of the items that we're going to be covering on the training session is like the new fan drives, the viscous fan drives, and then there's a lot of horsepower that it takes to run fans. Fans are very important. They move air through the engine compartment. They help cool the engine oil, the transmission oil, and make the air conditioner work properly. So all that has to be working together with everything, and the computer controls it. But another thing that we're talking about in training this year is wheel ends. All about the wheel ends. We can have the best tires in the world, we can have the best trucks in the world, but if we can't keep it all together, if we can't keep the wheels on the truck, through the bearings and all that, the oils and the differentials and the rear ends and the bearings on the wheels and the fasteners, if you can't keep it all together, you don't have anything. It's on the road, on the side of the road, not working. And if the truck's not rolling, the freight in the trailer's not getting delivered to it. So this is a tremendous opportunity to showcase skills, learn more, and work on your network. And the areas that we touch of a truck in this competition go from the front bumper to the rear bumper of the tractor and trailer. So this is a very good thing for the industry, because if we don't have trucks, America doesn't move.
Let's go ahead and stick with tires for a minute. Maybe share some information with the listening audience about some myths or misconceptions about tire maintenance that might be out there. For example, one of the big myths has to do with tire inflation pressure. So often, people wonder about, well, what is the right tire inflation pressure for my particular operation? Is it 75 psi? Is it 105 psi? It really depends, not necessarily what's printed on the side of the tire, but what's the load being carried, right?
Right. That's a misconception that's very big out there. And so some of the things we work with is the tires. We make sure we have the right tire in the right place. It's just like everywhere else. If you go to buy a new pair of pants, you have to try them on and make sure they work. And you look for it. Well, that's the same thing about tires. Tires are not all black and round. And new tires come in multiple sizes, and they come with different applications for the tires. And the various tire applications that a vehicle is going to do, such, for example, you have dump trucks, and then you have refuse trucks that go up and down your street every day, and then you have trucks that are used over the road, and you have last mile delivery trucks. So these are all require different tires, and they might be the same size. But the tread rubber on it might be a different compound, which means how fast it wears, how able it is to run in and out of a quarry or a driveway and not scrub off the rubber and not get chipped up and cut, or last going over the road in low rolling resistance. So you have to make sure you have the right tire for the right place. And then that's also true about retreads. A lot of people don't understand that retreads are not just a piece of rubber that gets glued back on a tire. There's a very specific process that a tire goes through to get a retread on it to be able to be safe to run on the road. You have to have the right inflation pressure in these tires. It doesn't matter if it's a retread or if it's an original tread tire. You have to maintain the proper inflation in the tires, because if you don't have the proper inflation in the tires, you change the footprint, change the reaction of the driver inputs to the road, because the only thing of the truck that's touching the road is that footprint of that tire. So that tire is very important that you have the proper footprint, and that footprint is made by not only the tread and the tire size and the tread design, but also the inflation pressure in that tire. And a tire may be going up and down the road carrying 10,000 pounds. It takes the right footprint, the right tire size to be able to carry that load. But then you might have a last mile delivery vehicle going up and down the road. The whole vehicle might only be 10 or 15,000 pounds. So obviously you would put a different tire on it, and you might run the different inflation pressure in that tire, but you have to run the correct inflation pressure. Now, we mold, all manufacturers mold on the sidewall of the tire, of course, the name of the brand and the series of the tire and the size of the tire. But we also put max inflation pressure on the sidewall, because that's the maximum inflation pressure for that tire when it's cold. In other words, you come out in the morning and you check your tires with the calibrated inflation gauge, and you notice I said a calibrated inflation gauge. I haven't seen many tire billies or toes or boots that are calibrated, nor do they have a gauge that can tell you what the inflation pressure is in that tire, because there's a reason for that inflation requirements for those tires to in the tire to carry the load. It's because you have to maintain that footprint, maintain that load carrying capacity, because the tire itself is just a container. That air pressure in those tires is what makes that tire be able to carry that load. So it's important that we check the right inflation pressure. Some may require 120. Some may be requiring 110. Some may only be 100. Or you might have a tire that's a smaller tire that's carrying a lighter load. It might only be 75 or 60. But you have to make sure you put the right amount of air in the tire, that the job it's doing and the load it's expected to carry. So that's one thing that some people may question, why we put a specific number on the sidewall of a tire. Well, that's the maximum of that tire load carrying capacity at that inflation. So you have to be aware of that. You have to make sure that the tread depth on the tires are the proper tread depth, because there are DOT minimums out there, and a fleet standard may be different than the DOT minimums. So the DOT minimums may be 4 or 2, but a fleet may say, I want to have my steer tires pulled at 6 or 8 30 seconds. So you have to make sure your fleet is running the right tire, the right inflation pressure, in the right positions, because not all tires on an 18-wheeler have to run at the same inflation pressure. That can vary. Just like going up and down the road, a refuse truck may run a different inflation pressure than a last-mile delivery vehicle that's delivering a package to your front door. Those tires are doing a different job and carrying different weights. So all those variables are there, but it's the technician that does all that, and the fleet maintenance department makes those answers, and we as a supplier are there to help them make those decisions. So it's a very complicated decision to make, but yet once we make the decision, it needs to be followed. And the truck drivers out there on the road, I know you're listening. That's what we try to do for you, to keep you safe while you're going up and down the road, and have the right tire in the right position with the right inflation pressure so that you can be safe.
You're listening to Tech Talk with TMC. We have Randy Patterson here with Bridgestone Americas. We're talking about tire maintenance and how it ties into the National Technician Skills Competition, TMCSuperTech 2025. That'll be happening in Raleigh, North Carolina next week, September 14th through the 18th. You were talking about underinflation, how important that is. You can either be underinflated or you can be having an overloaded condition, and it works out to about the same thing. What really gets critical, though, is when you start getting to a 20% or greater underinflation or overload condition, because you can end up with something we call the zipper condition, right?
Right. Yes. Our tires today have steel in them, and they have steel belt package, but they also have steel body plies. And when you're going up and down the road, those body plies flex. Well, like I said, the inflation pressure is critical in the tires for the load it's carrying. And if you have a tire that is underinflated, over 20% underinflation, you are increasing the deflection of the sidewall. It's people talk about it's the bubble that's on the sidewall of the tire that it does when it goes through the rolling and it's down at the ground. That overflexes that steel, and it's just like a coat hanger. When you bend a coat hanger and you continue to bend that coat hanger too much, the wire in the coat hanger is going to break. Well, that's what happens in the sidewall of a tire if your tires are ran under inflation for the load it's carrying or the recommended inflation pressure. It overflexes and it can break, and it can have a zipper rupture, is what we call it, because the steel in the sidewalls overflex and they fatigue and then they break up. Now, this is a phenomenon that happens when you run tires not only under inflation from inflation pressure, but if your tire is overloaded, it will also do this, or it can do this as well. So it's critical that you keep the correct inflation pressure in your tires. It's critical that you check your inflation pressure in your tires when they're cold, because as the tires run up and down the road, they are going to build a little heat in them, obviously, because they're running up and down the road and flexing, but they're also going to build up a little bit of inflation pressure. That build of inflation pressure, that can be 10 to 15 to 18% inflation pressure. So, for example, if you run your tire at 100 psi, or for example, a steer tire on a truck going down the road, if you cold inflation pressure recommends that to be at 110 psi, you're going up and down the road, and when that thing becomes at correct operating temperature, the pressure in that thing is going to be around 125, 130 psi. That's okay. Everything is made to accommodate for that amount of pressure and that amount of heat. But if you are supposed to have 110 psi and you're running that tire up and down the road at 100 or 95, you're underinflated because you're overflexing that tire. And if you're under 20% underinflation, you are overflexing it, and you can have problems because it can come to a catastrophic failure, which we don't want. But you look at trailer tires and drive tires. Sometimes those get normally ran about 95. That's okay. But if those things get down around 75, 80 psi, that's bad, because if those continue to run, then they can fail, and we don't like seeing that rubber all over the road. Now, as we come up to winter, I want to talk about this a little bit. As we come up to the colder weather makes everything contract, just naturally. So for every 10 degrees ambient, your inflation pressure is going to decrease about 1 to 2 psi. Just naturally from the ambient temperature. So it's critical that you check your tires when they're cold, and know that they are going to get warmer as they're operating, but never deflate a hot tire. Always check your tire when they're cold. You can check air pressure when they're hot. That's fine. But make sure, like in a dual set, if you have one that's running at 110 psi and the other tire is running at 90 psi, and set pressure is supposed to be 100 psi, well, you need to wait till they cool off, and that can be like in a truck tire, 3 hours. You take a break. After 3 hours or so, you check your tires again, and then you might come up, if that 90 psi tire is down around 80, well, then you've got a flat tire. So you have to be aware of when you're checking your tires, but do check your tires. Check them with a gauge. Now, the TPMS sensors are good. They tell you it's on the dash, but you always need to inspect your tires, because when you're back there inspecting your tires, you might find debris in them. that could eventually work its way into the tread. You know, you might be able to pull something out of the tire or inspect it or report it. You know, use your DVIR. Let the maintenance department know that, hey, I got something going on this tire back here. So always use your communication to let the maintenance department know what's going on your vehicle.
We just got a couple of minutes left in the segment. You mentioned underinflation. If the tire is 20% or more underinflated for any length of time, really it's considered a flat tire, and that tire should be demounted from the rim and inspected before return to service, if at all return to service. Isn't that right? We just have about 30 seconds for that answer.
Yes, always demount your tire when you're looking for a puncture or something wrong when it's deflated. Make sure that you check your tire inside and outside, because outside it may look fine. Never repair a tire from the outside. Always demount it and look on the inside, because there could be damage inside your tire.
Another misconception I want to touch on before we end the segment. You know, retreads often will get a bad break in terms of they're unfairly criticized because they'll say, oh, this retread failed because it was a retread. Well, in fact, most times when you see a failure on the side of the road, you see those tire alligators, it's not because it's a retread at all. And one way you can spot that is if you see the casing or the piece of tread that's on the side of the road and you see wire coming out of that 99 times out of 100 has nothing to do with the fact it's a retread. That was an underinflation condition that brought it to that point. If you don't see that wire outside of that tread scrap, then perhaps that was related to some sort of a defect in retread process. Isn't that right? 30 seconds on that answer. Yes. That's a very important fact is the fact that's why I said you got to make sure we check inflation pressure, because if the casing fails, you're going to see little wires sticking out of it. And that majority of the rubber on the side of the road is because of that. When a driver goes and picks up a trailer from a drop yard, he needs to make sure those tires are ready to go. Just because the operation says, hey, go pick up that trailer, the load's ready to go, that doesn't mean that trailer's ready to go physically. You've got to inspect your tires before you hit the road to be able to maintain proper safe driving going down the road. And remember, you're not the only person on the road. You got a lot of other motoring public on that road, so let's respect them and the road that we're all driving on together. There's a lot of great technology helping drivers, like tire pressure monitoring systems, to help them make sure that the inflation pressure is proper. But a good tire gauge, quality tire gauge, is always the thing to have in the cab, just as a backup. And we strongly encourage everybody to use that judiciously. That's pretty much all the time we have for this segment of Tech Talk with TMC. Randy, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you in Raleigh, North Carolina next week at our National Technician Skills Competition, September 14th through the 18th, Raleigh Convention Center. Technology Maintenance Council's fall meeting. Randy is the competition chairman this year for the event, and he'll be a busy camper out there all next week at TMC. Randy, we'll see you out then at Raleigh. With that, I'm going to go back to the studios and Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Robert, well done, and it's good to hear about the treads on the tires, too, because Kevin Lindsay of our friends over at TA Petro often remind people that it ain't the retreads that are the problem. It's good to have you, as always. Who do you got on the docket for next week?
Next week, I'll be bringing a whole host of folks for the fall meeting broadcast. We'll be broadcasting live from Raleigh, and we hope to bring a lot of information to your listening audience based on what we'll be talking about at our fall meeting at Tech Talk with TMC.
Thank you, Robert, as always. It's good to spend time with you.